All right, we are here again, going through our chronological reading plan with Job. We're going to be doing chapters 20 through 23. Is that right? 20 through 23? I think that's right.
Yes, sir.
And so we're going to have Zophar, then Job is going to speak, and then we're going to end with Eliphaz speaking. Are we going to leave 23 off so that we can put 23 and 24 together? Yeah, We'll just cover it if we have time. Okay, so in chapter 20, Zophar speaks. If you're joining us again, we're in Job chapter 20. We're going through with the ESV chronological reading plan. And Zophar the Naamathite is going to answer Job. Job has just talked about how he can't make sense of what's going on around him, but he knows that there is a hope. And Zophar is going to answer, and Zophar is going to try and explain to Job that, Job, bad things happen to bad people. Right, the wicked will suffer, is what Zophar is going to argue. And his friends keep trying to tell Job that he just doesn't know what he's talking about. And Job definitely knows what he's talking about, because if there is sin in his life, then who would know that? Job. Yeah. If Job has been secretly stealing from widows and beating up orphans, then he knows that he has done that. And he keeps telling them, no, I didn't do those things. And the friends keep saying, you're a liar, Job. Just fess up. and so it's like a bad detective movie, or a bad movie where they have the wrong guy in the interrogation room and they keep shining lights on him and telling him, just confess. And Job's like, there's nothing to confess. I didn't do it. And that's going back and forth. And so if you notice that when you're reading through Job, that is a consistent element in the speeches. Job is going to say, I didn't do anything. And the friends are going to say, you must have done something because you're suffering, so you're bad. And Job says, that's not right. This is just not just. And there is a sense in which that's true. It's not injustice on God's part, but it is not just, because the people who don't do wrong shouldn't suffer. Right? If you do everything right, and we're not talking about perfection and justification by works or anything like that, but just if you do the right thing, then the right thing should happen to you. That's how it should work, but that's not how it works. And it's interesting that people know that. They know that that's how it should work, and when it doesn't, we get upset. And so Job is kind of grappling with that. It's like, if God is just, then why is this injustice happening to me? It is the thing that Job is dealing with. So Zophar says, well, it's happening to you because you're wicked, Job. That's why. Do you not know this from old? Look at verse 4. Do you not know this from old, that since man was placed on the earth, the exulting of the wicked is short, and the joy of the godless is but a moment? So here we are in chapter 20. Here you see this. The exulting of the wicked is short, the joy of the godless is but a moment. And so he's arguing that they get cut short, right? Their rejoicing ends. What they possess is taken away. And he's going to just say those things down through verse 11. His bones are full of youthful vigor, but he will lie down in the dust. Right? And who has this happened to in the book of Job so far?
The punishments have happened to Job.
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem to be committing anything worthy of them from his perspective.
Right. And that's the struggle in this book. Now, you know something that Job doesn't know. If you've read chapter 1 and chapter 2, you know that Satan, or the Satan, has come in, the adversary has come in, and is standing opposed to Job. God holds Job up as an example of righteousness. Look at my servant Job, he would say. And Satan's response, or the Satan's response, the adversary, the response is, well, you're only nice to him because he's so faithful. And he's only successful, or he's only faithful because you're so nice to him. And that clearly is not the case. Right? When this happens, this calamity comes upon Job, Job does not abandon his faith. He doesn't understand what's going on, but he doesn't abandon his faith. And he thinks, if I could just get God to come and talk to me, I could explain to God why this isn't right. Right? And so that seems to kind of be the overall feeling. All right, so chapter 20 is basically just Zophar saying, bad things happen to bad people. And that's not true. I mean, sometimes it is, but it's not always true. It's not universally true. But the friends are putting this forward as a universal truth, an axiom, that whenever you do wrong, wrong happens to you, bad happens to you. Okay? That would be nice because then nobody would want to do the wrong thing. But sometimes cheating gets you ahead, right? There's that phrase, cheaters never win. That's not true. They do. They do. Have you ever noticed when you play Monopoly that the banker never loses? Just saying.
That's why Zane wants to bank.
Right? I'm just saying the banker always wins.
I'm just kidding.
Right? You're actually supposed to have a separate player be the banker. Anyway, if a player is the banker, they don't lose. Well, how come? Because cheaters win. They do. And so that old statement, oh, cheaters never win. Now, you can argue that it's not a real victory, but they win. They win all the time. Right? The Patriots won lots of Super Bowls. A football joke. So what we see is that Zophar's wrong. And Job is going to say that. If you look over in chapter 21. Look in chapter 21. Bear with me and I will speak. And after I have spoken, verse 3, after I have spoken, mock on. In other words, I know you're going to disagree with me and make fun of me, but I'm going to talk and then you can go ahead and finish. He's going to say throughout this chapter, it's like the wicked do prosper. The bad things don't happen to bad people only. Look at me and be appalled. Verse 5, lay your hand over your mouth. You know, he's saying, I didn't do anything wrong, but look at me. Verse 8, or let's go to verse 7. What does verse 7 say?
Why do the wicked live, reach old age, and grow mighty in power?
Yeah, and he's going to continue on. Their offspring are established. Their houses are safe from fear. There is no rod of God upon them. Their bulls breed without fail. Their cows calve and don't miscarry. They send out their little boys like a flock. Their children dance. Or their life is perfect.
It's almost the exact opposite of what Bildad just said in yesterday's reading.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And so they're going back and forth. The friends are arguing that bad things happen to bad people, Job. And Job's like, that's not true. Because I didn't do anything wrong and bad things happen to me. And I'm sure he could think of examples that he knows in his life of somebody who is wicked, but they're prospering. Right? You can look throughout history and you can find people. You probably know, and if you don't yet, you will eventually know of people who are not doing what's right, but they're still prospering.
Well, like Herod, when Jesus was born.
Yes.
He was a very wicked ruler, and he had a lot of power.
Yes. Why? And that's what Job is struggling with. And so the issue is, he has a correct idea. He believes that God is sovereign, and God is. God is the ruler of the universe. But that doesn't mean that God does everything in the universe. Okay, kings are sovereign. A government is sovereign, not because what the government wants always happens. The government is sovereign when it can punish the wrongdoer. Right? When they have the authority to punish those who don't listen. And so that is the sense in which God is sovereign. And he could force his will to happen, but he doesn't. Right? He allows things to happen, but he is able to hold accountable those who choose to disobey. That's really the idea of sovereignty, is that people should listen to you. You have the authority that they should listen to. So that's kind of the idea. Job gets that, but he mistakenly thinks that God is the only player. Right? He doesn't account for the angels or the heavenly hosts or the adversary. He doesn't account for those beings having influence and interacting also. Right? It's almost like he thinks there's a baseball game, but there's only one team playing. Who would win?
The home team.
That's right. That's right. And so that's kind of how he views things, and he's wrong. But it's a faithful mistake. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There will be times when we get things wrong, where we don't understand everything. But there's the difference between a heresy, like a true heresy, and a mistake, an error. A heresy is a willful redefining of something. In other words, God tells you to do something and you don't like it, so you change it. Right? That truly, when you go back in history and you look at how early believers really defined heresy, that's really heresy. It's not a mistake. It's not you have this idea wrong. They were very tolerant of that. If you just got something wrong, they didn't say, "Well, nice knowing you."
Well, Paul met that one guy he was way off. He was still teaching John's baptism.
Apollos.
Sorry, I couldn't remember his name.
Yep.
And he didn't call him a heretic.
Well, that was Priscilla and Aquila actually met with Apollos. But Paul, no, you're right. Paul in Acts 19 met like 12 guys who only knew the baptism of John. And he doesn't come up and say, "Man, you guys are just so heretical. It's crazy. I don't even want to talk to you," and leave. Right? He discussed with them and he said, "Hey, let's talk about this." And they had a conversation. And so the early believers, they weren't looking to cut people out of the fellowship. They wanted to include people. They were very, very tolerant of people who just made mistakes or who didn't understand. In 1 Corinthians 15, there are people who don't believe there's a resurrection. And Paul doesn't say, "You're not even real Christians." Right? He argues with them.
But that's like one of the biggest points too.
It's like the thing, right? And that's what he says. He's like, "Look, I'm glad that you're following Jesus, but if there's no resurrection, then why are you following Jesus?" Right? And so that's what you see here with Job. He misunderstands things, but it's a faithful mistake. And so when God comes to him, God corrects him. At the end of the book, God corrects him, but Job doesn't have to repent in the same way that the other people do. Right? And so it's just interesting to notice. So Job in chapter 22 says, no, you're wrong. Bad people, good things do happen to bad people. All right, so that's going to get us to chapter 22, where our friend Eliphaz is going to speak again. Don't you just love him, Ania? Eliphaz is your favorite, isn't he?
Nope.
He basically just ignores everything Job just said.
Yes. It's not a conversation, right? It's not a conversation where you're listening to each other, but it's not written to be that way.
It's more like a political debate.
Yes. Yes. It actually is written to force you to jump back and forth, right? So it's not like a conversation like two friends might have who are listening to each other and reasoning with one another. It is almost like a political debate where you just have two people who are ignoring one another and they just keep going back to their talking points. Job does kind of interact with the friends some, like with what they say, but the friends by and large are just like, "Nope, you're wicked. You have to be, Job, because your stuff blew up, so you're wicked." So Eliphaz is going to pretty much say the same thing. Job must be really wicked because really bad things happened. And you can see this in John chapter 9. So do you guys remember what happens in John chapter 9? Jesus and his disciples, there's somebody who can't see, and the disciples ask a question. Do you remember what the question is?
Don't they ask Jesus who sinned to
Yeah.
make him be blind?
Yeah, who sinned, this man or his parents? That question assumes what, Ania?
That assumes that he sinned so that. Sorry, what?
What does that question? Who sinned? They see the man who's blind from birth, and they say, who sinned, that man or his parents? What does that question assume?
Assumes that he's a sinner just because he's blind.
Yes, it assumes that God punishes, that bad things only happen to people who sin. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. It assumes Job's friends. It's the same assumption. And these are Jesus' disciples. And Jesus responds, no, not either one. It's none of those things. But this was allowed to happen so that God's glory could be shown through this situation.
I have one question real fast.
Sure.
About the 22nd chapter.
Sure.
What does the second verse mean? It says, "Can a man be profitable to God? And then surely he who is wise is profitable to himself." What is that talking about?
Keep reading.
Is there any pleasure to the Almighty if you are in the right? Or is it gain to him if you make your ways blameless? Oh, so it's saying, do you, like, it's asking, is it adding to God if you're righteous?
Yeah, kind of.
Does your
You know,
righteousness make him better or something?
Can you give something to God? Can you be profitable to God? Surely, if you're wise, then you'll help yourself. But can you help God? Is there any pleasure to the Almighty if you are in the right, or is it a gain to Him if you make your ways blameless? So what do you give to God if you do everything correctly? What is it that you give to Him? Is it for your fear of Him that He reproves you and enters into judgment with you? Is not your evil abundant? And so it's pretty much saying, look, God doesn't need anything from you. And so if you are doing what is right, you're not giving God something that He needs. You're just doing what ought to be done, right? And you will benefit, not God, but if you're doing all of the right things, who will you benefit?
He's saying you'd benefit yourself.
Yes.
By being righteous, because good things happen to the righteous.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so, because good things happen to the righteous, you must be
not unrighteous.
Right. You must be wicked. And you must be really wicked because bad things happen to you, really bad things.
Okay. Thank you. I was kind of confused by how that was making sense to his argument.
Yeah. Usually in Job, if you read something and you're like, wait a minute, just keep reading because it's a poem.
Okay.
And so it's written poetically. It's a poem. All right. So, chapter 23, that's the summary of the argument. You must be really bad because really bad things happen to you. In chapter 23, I think we're about to be out of time, so we're going to kind of group chapter 23 with 24 because they're both Job's response to Eliphaz. Eliphaz and Job are really the two. They butt heads the most. And so we'll put Job's reply 23 and 24 together, even though 23 was the end of today's reading. And so next time we'll do 23 in addition to the reading for next time. Okay? Thanks for doing this with me again, guys.
Yeah.
I love you all very much.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. And if you're joining with us and you have questions, please feel free to make those in the comments. Thank you for being with us. God bless you, and we'll see you again soon.